Hi, my name is John Stigman. I'm a social studies teacher here at Osakis High School. I've been here for, I believe it's my 28th year, and I've been the head girls softball coach for 27 years. When we started our program 27 years ago was one field, which is the field that we're on right now. It's the varsity field. And then we've been able to expand that field into two other fields. We have a junior high field over here and a JV field to the back. This is the only enclosed field that we have, and so this one has a full fence all the way around the field with fully enclosed dugouts. Our other two fields do not. Our JV field is the second oldest field here. That field is partially enclosed. It is a regulation field with a regulation fence, but it has no dugouts to keep players out of the elements. It's kind of butted up to a swamp, which means that any foul ball hit down the third baseline can end up out in the swamp to never be retrieved. And it's unlevel. It basically, everything kind of runs downhill just because of where it was built. Our third field is our junior high field, which was built here probably about 10, 12 years ago. It was kind of thrown together. It's not a regulation size field. It's substantially short. We can't use it for any type of varsity level softball play. And it has no enclosed fence on it. It has no dugouts on it. And so it's just kind of been an auxiliary field that we've been using, just so we have somewhere for our junior high students to go. Our junior high field is right next to the road, and that is an issue, a safety issue for kids, especially for younger kids. We tend to have a lot of our junior high games in the summer. A lot of T-ball and Little League games are there, and it's probably about maybe 8 feet from the fence to the roads, which means that you have cars coming by. You've got a lot of cars parked along the road, which means cars can't see the kids coming up from between the cars. And so it ends up being a safety issue for kids, basically, especially little kids in the summer. So one of the problems that we have with our field and our whole complex out here is the fact that our field is actually built lower than the road. And so what we run into is that anytime we get any rainfall, rainfall tends to run downhill, and so it runs right onto our field. Also the fact that our field doesn't really have very good drainage underneath it. So it does take a long time for our field to dry, especially if we get a lot of rain. And in the spring, it becomes really difficult to get it dried out because of the heavy soil that's underneath it. And so it's not uncommon for us to not be able to use this field well into about the middle of April, when our games are supposed to have started, basically the first week of April. Is central location. So we've got a hitting facility along the first baseline of our varsity field, which is a double cage, bullpens, some hitting nets. All of our equipment is down in the shed that's down the right field line. But we have our two fields that are basically off to the north end of the complex. So when our JV and our junior high are practicing, it's really hard for them to come all the way down across the complex to use the facilities when it's basically cutting into their practice time. So they have a tendency to not use it when it was intended for them to be used. We don't really have any concessions or bathrooms. The bathrooms are generally going to be porta potties that are brought in, usually one or two. And there is no concessions. The only thing that would be close to that would be the football concessions, but it's not close enough to be any use for the games that we have. Now, any type of concession area that we put up or any building that would be put up would also include more storage, which is something that we're also kind of short of here as well. We share a storage facility with our track program, which we both basically are running out of space within that facility. Issues that we run into just for spring sports in general, and it's been very true lately, in the last couple of years, is we've had late springs. So we've had winter kind of hanging on a little bit longer than it should. Snowfall in late March, early April, which our seasons are supposed to be starting usually the first week of April. And so what'll happen is, in order for us to get the games in, because we're on a very strict time schedule, is we'll have to rent facilities to get some of those games in. So the two facilities that we use the most would be St. Ben's down in St. Joe. And that's a turf softball field. That actually costs us about $100 per game to use. Not accessible for practice, just for games. But then if we use the dome at St. John's or the dome at St. Cloud State, they usually will charge us somewhere around $125 an hour. So you figure that's probably going to be at least 2.5 to 3 hours for us to use that facility, which includes game time and warm-up time. And so there's a huge expense to that. I think last year, we were down there at least twice, spending about close to $600 just to rent that facility or more, just to get some of our games in. If we look to improve the facility out here, and probably the first one is to have 3 enclosed fields, all varsity regulation fields. And what that would do for us would allow us to hold some larger events including playoff softball games, high school league tournament games, stuff like that. So we would actually have an ability to host something like that, which would then bring in substantial crowds and substantial revenue. Right now, we can basically use one field for any type of event like that, given our junior high field is not fully enclosed and not full-length regulation, and the other JV field is just really not to that level of play. If you do that, and you have those fields, then if you have a concession area that is also, it's a revenue generating concession where you can have sale of concessions and food at home games. You can have basically people coming to town, especially if you have a large event where you have people coming in, that they'll come to the game, buy some concessions, and probably stay in town, eat something before they leave. So it can be a revenue generating for the school and the community at the same time. If there is turf on the football field, I think that opens up a lot of possibilities for every one of our spring programs. For us in particular, it allows us to get outside sooner. So when that turf is open, we can be outside, we can take infield, we can take fielding practice. There is a possibility for our program that we could actually play early games on that turf if the weather or our field is not dry yet. So we could actually put a full softball field on there. So for us, that gives us a possibility of another practice facility and something early so we can get out and not have to worry about the Minnesota weather and what it does.